welcome Spartans to Halo Book Club, part of Evolved, your home for Halo. Halo Book Club goes beyond the video games and covers Halo's extended media lore from the novels, short stories, comic books and more. And we need more because we're running out, people. Oh my god. I'm your host today, David, and with me is Aaron.
Hi guys.
And today's book club is one of the short stories from Fractures, as we're getting to the bottom of the barrel, everybody. It's called Anarosa. It's pretty nice, it's pretty quick, it's pretty short, so this show will be the same. If you're new to the show, welcome. Halo Book Club is part of Evolved, like I mentioned, and we have a whole bunch of other Halo-themed content for you, including Podcast Evolved, which is our main show, Mission Debrief, Builder Blocks, Halo TV Plus, Halo Gear Guide, and Halo Headlines. We also partner with HCS Pro Talk, which is a podcast where Josh and Will discuss the latest information within the competitive Halo scene. Their emphasis is very strong on the community, and they're there each and every week. So go check those guys out. If you want to learn more of our different shows, you can check out our website, which is evolvedhalo.com. We also have halopodcast.com. If you're already a fan of the show, please rate us and leave us a review. We greatly appreciate all the feedback you can give us there, guys, to improve our shows. I also want to take this moment to thank our patrons for your continued support. You guys are obviously incredible. So again, thank you so much for everybody that just chips in and gets us, keeps us going. Even when the content runs out, we'll mix up something else. Who knows? We'll find something else to do with our time. So if you're not subscribed, go check out patreon.com/Halo Evolve to learn more. And finally, we'd like to encourage any of our listeners to support Audible. You can get pretty much the entire Halo sagas. Every Halo novel, more or less, I believe, has an Audible audio book. So if you want to go check that out, as well as anything else that's on that site, you can have audibletrial.com/podcast evolve to learn more and get a free trial today. So the book club info. Aaron, do you want me to do this, or you want to do this? Maybe I can do this, bitches.
I can do this if you did the socials, and then we can yak, because this is, like we said, it's going to be a pretty tight one.
Yeah.
If we do a book club episode that's longer than the audio play time of the book, then maybe we're doing too much. The title of this is called Anarosa. It was written by Kevin Grace. He was a managing editor at 343 between 2009 and 2018.
Oh, I never knew that. I thought this was just a rando. That's very interesting. That's cool.
I believe he was also a franchise director at one point, which it may be... was that Frankie's job at one point?
I thought so. I was about to say, yeah, could be.
Or it may be Grimm's job now, I can't remember. It's one or the other. Frankie might be well above that now. But this book came out in physical, digital and audio versions. It was the 20th of September 2016, so 6 years ago. Wow.
Damn. That's the before times.
I know, like so long ago. I don't have a page count for this because I listened to the audio version, but it was 20 minutes long in audio form.
I would say if it might not even be that many number of pages. It might be 20 odd. It's very, very short.
It's probably tight enough. I have a short summary here. So, immediately following an industrial accident at Oros Trading Company headquarters on Mars, the Office of Naval Intelligence attempts to recover the body of the deceased scientist Anarosa Carmelo in the hope that a smart AI can be created from her brain. Anarosa's brilliant mind made her a suitable donor candidate, but before her untimely death, she had delayed recruitment twice in her lifetime. Running out of time, Oni deploys Agent Prass and AI Leo in an emergency run to obtain consent agreement from Anarosa's brother and last living relative, Michael Carmelo. That pretty neatly sets up the story. The timeline, this takes place sometime in March of 2556. It takes place on Mars. And there are only 4 characters, which is very nice. So, we have Agent Prass, we have Leo the AI, we have Michael Carmelo the brother, and we have Anarosa Carmelo, who's only mentioned in passing because she's unfortunately dead. At the time of this incident, she is 26, with short brown hair and brown eyes, which may trigger a bell as we go through this story. I suppose like we do the quick blow by blow because there's not a lot to it. Like you start this story and Prowse and Leo are speeding through traffic. They're on their way to Michael's house. Leo's giving him the backstory on what happened to this next candidate. She's died on a training exercise. She's gone into like a training fighter or shuttle and the fire suppression system has activated by accident and frozen slash suffocated her in the cockpit.
Yeah, this sounds horrible.
It's instant freezy death. I think they said it took her 15 seconds. So
15 seconds, something, yeah.
it was not a nice way to go. And Leo does say that it doesn't appear to have been her fault, so it's just one of those freak accidents that happened. They get to Michael's house. Prowse gets himself all composed, goes and talks to Michael on the doorstep. He digests everything they say and basically says, "Get fucked, go away." Also, just as they get to the house, Prowse says to Leo, "Has he been informed?" And Leo's like, "Yes, he got the call from HR 16 minutes ago and he hung the phone up 4 minutes ago." And you're like, this is very fresh. He has literally just found out that she's died.
And they're come hounding looking for her brain.
This is how quick this is. She is only just dead and they are scrambling immediately. He does say, Prowse says to Leo in the car, it's this should have all been organised before. And Leo's like, yeah, no, we approached her twice before and both times she asked us a lot of questions and then said she'd have to think about it. And left it open-ended. So normally, I suppose they have all an organ donor. They have your card signed in advance and then they just come to the hospital and lift your brain and go on. In this case, they're having to scramble as a rapid response team, basically. They go back to the car. Prowse is just telling Leo to pull the pin on everything and recall the recovery team and all the rest of it. And then Michael comes out and to the car. And Prowse goes to talk to him and he's like, "Shut up, I don't want to talk to you." And turns to Leo's avatar on the dashboard and is "I want to talk to him." So he goes back into the house. Leo's avatar joins him.
I like this. This is a cool little twist of coming out, let me talk to the AI. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. I like the way that's where the story went.
I suppose it makes the most sense when you think about it. The human coming to tell you about becoming an AI isn't the same as the smart AI coming to tell you what they think about the whole thing. So I like the way they sort of flip this on its head. So just as it starts, Leo fires up his, human analysis subroutines and he's monitoring Michael's blood pressure, skin color, nervous system activity, all of this. He's just judging how he's reacting while he talks to him. Michael starts to ask Leo all these questions. He says oh, these aren't the normal questions people ask me. Do you wish you knew who your donor was? Will I know if Anarosa successfully makes an A? And he's like, no, you can't know anything. We don't tell the AI who their donor was. They don't get those details. I was so I'll not actually know. I was no, you don't get any of that. And he's like, do you want to know who your donor is? And Leo sort of caught a little off guard with this and yes, I do wonder who it was. I have bits of flashes of memory from the person my donor was. He's I think I had a child and stuff like this. And Leo seems quite sad about the whole thing for a while. And he basically says to Michael, yeah, we try not to think about this shit too much because we just drive ourselves insane because that's all we can do is sit and think. Which is, I suppose, kind of what we've got of Cortana, but Cortana knows where she came from and was far more willing to dive into it. But then again, Cortana's donor didn't actually die. She was still there to give shit to her. The only other time they've touched on this is the Kilo 5 trilogy with BB and his donor.
Yeah, I think that's the most we've ever gotten, actually. That's the only real hint of it was BB.
BB in the end chooses not to see who his donor was. He didn't want to know who that was, but we then find out who he was. So I suppose we get that in a roundabout way. But yeah, no, this is what, this is how this conversation goes back and forth. And then eventually Michael's okay, right, yes, you can use her. You can make a donor out of her. So they go on, they get back out into the car, they scramble the team. And then Prowse talks to Leo for a minute and he's lit. Now, wait, before we go to the last bit, because I have something I want to talk about there, but this bit up until now, this conversation with Leo and Michael, what did you think?
I thought it was pretty cool. That was very interesting. I got the impression that Leo was totally caught off guard. He wasn't actually sent to do this kind of part of it, which is kind of really interesting because why is the smart AI involved in this at all? What's his actual purpose? Why can't you just send an agent to go and have this conversation? Seems like a total waste of a smart AI's function. It just seems like this wasn't part of the plan to have the AI actually converse with a person about being a donor, and that like he said, he mentioned that like all we do is think. So we try to think about this because it can quickly hasten on the rampancy. So it seems very interesting, and that he has this human thing. I didn't really understand this kind of program he had running where like these numbers were going up, and it was still running even when he was talking to Prowse back in the car. I kind of got mixed up there. Like, was it like telling him something about himself, or was it him measuring Michael, like, or measuring Prowse as well for like lies or something like that? I'm not sure.
Yeah, we'll talk about this last part because I ended up looking up some theories because I wasn't 100% sure. I don't remember any of this from the first time I listened to it, so I obviously just skimmed over it and paid no attention. But this time around, I was like, oh, hang on a minute. So they're in the car, they're talking at the end. Price is talking to Leo. He's like, Leo, you've never mentioned any of this stuff before. And Leo's like, well, you've never asked. And Price is like, oh, fair point. And it's one of these things where AIs are like, occasionally people ask them questions that catch them off guard. And it's always the questions about, it's like with BB and Phillips. Phillips is always interested in BB's like personality, who he is and the rest of it. And he's like, people are normally interested in how many things I can calculate and what I can do and all the rest of it. And Phillips is more like,
how do you feel?
yes, what is your mind like, things like that. So those always seem to be the ones that catch the AIs off guard. They're ready to like flaunt their brilliance, but when someone asks them a deep, meaningful question, they're like, oh shit. Yeah, when this is happening, he's like talking to Leo, and Leo's staring off out along the dashboard, and he's getting more of these bio readings as the story goes on. In the conversation with Michael, every so often Leo gives a status update of Michael's vitals. And then suddenly in the car, he continues to give status readings of vitals. The same set, and they're getting higher and higher and more agitated. And I'm sitting here thinking like, is this Prowse's vitals? Because the first time I was like, these can't be Leo's. Leo doesn't have simulated vital signs, so they can't be him. But I was like, maybe it is. No, it's not. And I was like, is it Prowse? So then my first theory was, does Prowse know something about Leo's donor? Was Prowse responsible for it?
Oh, interesting.
Is this him on edge going like,
oh shit, where's this conversation going to go?
Yeah, things are getting deep. So that was my first thought. So then I went and did a little looking up online, and in a few Reddit threads, there's also another theory which I absolutely did not think of, which is that Leo is still monitoring Michael's vitals, and after they left, Michael commits suicide.
You think?
This is the other theory that people have. It's like, she was his last family member, she's now dead, he's just given up her brain and he'll never know. And then Leo says at the end, like, oh, I was just getting an update on our next case. And I'm like, are they about to go back to take Michael's brain? Are they about to make a second AI from the brother?
I wouldn't have thought so, because they seem to make no, well, not the AI, he might have killed himself, but I don't think they ever were interested in him as an AI, because it seems to be like he wasn't on their radar. They have very select few people who they actually turn into AIs. Your brain needs to be exceptional. You need to be exceptional. And they never mention anything all about Michael being of any interest. So I wouldn't have thought that. But interesting enough that, yeah, the spike in the vitals, maybe that's him.
Yeah, like they go super, super high, and you're like, okay, that could make total sense that someone was about to do something very drastic, and that was it. It got me with two theories, and I was like, oh, I'm not sure which one I would buy into more. Like, I like the idea that Prowse, I like the idea that Prowse is responsible for recruiting Leo, and he knew something of Leo in his past life. Like, I find that interesting. Although, as Leo said, I'd imagine then they would have kept them separate. But then again, if he only recruited him, he may not have had any personal dealings with Leo's donor. But then the idea that Michael lost his last living relative and just gave up on life.
That's pretty dark.
That's like the only thing really with this story. There's no other trivia or anything to go with it. The only detail, if you didn't put two and two together, is that Anarosa would eventually become Isabel. She is Isabel's donor. So this is the origin story for Isabel in Halo Wars 2.
And interesting that, like, the way they touch on, like, residual memories and kind of, like, personality imprints and stuff like that, that Isabel was, like, a scientist, and that she wasn't made into like a military AI, she was logistics.
They say in the conversation she didn't want to be a soldier. She didn't want to be used for military purposes. So they put her in charge of this research facility. It adds a level of detail to it because she is a scientist. She started this program where she unfortunately dies. The company she worked for built slipspace drives, but she was training test pilots for colonizing new star systems and heading out into the galaxy because they're like, right, the war with the Covenant's over.
Let's go reclaim a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, this was her vision for the future, was like going out and colonizing. So she ended up like being in charge of the most important colonization effort, which was getting out to the Ark and getting a research facility set up.
Yeah, which is pretty cool. And obviously that all goes disastrous when Aatrox shows up. But Isabella's pretty cool, and like you can listen back to like all of our stuff on Isabella when it comes to like mission debriefs and stuff like that. But we have warmed to her. I think she came on pretty well in the course of that game, and obviously hopefully we'll get back to those characters at some stage. But it's nice to have an AI origin story because typically we don't, other than Cortana, and maybe a hint that we know more or less BB was like a friend of Paranovsky's. I think we even know his name. I can't remember. He was somebody.
We do know his name. He was one of the research scientists of the Spartan 2 program, and that was his last wish then, was to be an AI responsible for minding the Spartans. So that's how he becomes hers.
That's kind of it. I don't know. Do you have anything else to add to this?
Not overly. Like, it's a good little story. It's short, it's concise, it's to the point. It's always nice to get a little AI stuff and a little more interaction with people. I just need an answer now about what the end of the story means. If anyone listening has a theory or has their own personal theory on what they think it means, please feel free to either send us an email at podcastevolved@gmail.com or drop us a voicemail on 205-386-5833, because I'd love to know what people think of this. Like, did it cross your mind that that's what those vital signs at the end were? Like me, did you think it was Agent Prowse panicking? Or did it ever enter your brain that Michael was about to do a terrible thing? I'd love to know what the listeners think on this one, because it's not too often you get such an open-ended story like this in Halo. Usually everything has a defined start, middle, and end.
Yeah.
I don't think of anything else as a good story. It's solid. I enjoy it. I think the author that wrote this, the only other things to say here is that Kevin Grace also wrote the story in Evolutions, The Return.
Oh, cool.
And I believe he was responsible for all the dialogue in the terminals in the anniversary editions.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so like quite a good writer. I think that's us, David. I can't think of anything else really to cover on this.
Yeah, me either, nothing here. We'll wrap it up there. Like Aaron said, reach out on our phone call if you want to have a conversation, or if you know something a bit more about this, or have any kind of theories, let us know. Like we mentioned at the top of the show, all of our episodes are on our website, haloevolved.com. They're on all kinds of podcasting services. You should be able to find us everywhere. On the website you will also find our Discord server, Facebook group, Patreon page, Xbox Live Club, and other contact information should you need it. Once again, special shout out to all our patrons for supporting the show and making all this possible. Head to patreon.com/haloevolved to learn more. And I've been your host, David, and until next time, evolved.
Evolved.